Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Today is a very interesting topic, so if it's okay, because often what it is that when we're in communities like this and we're discussing, it can seem and feel impersonal, because who is this person? So is it okay if I just give a short intro of myself? So I'm from London, from England, and I've been a monk for 3 years at the Bhakti Manor, just traveling by through. And one thing that really inspired me in my life is to be able to seek wisdom, to search out for wisdom that can really enhance the quality of my spiritual practice, my life, and to be able to share that with others. And I've been doing that for the last 6 years now. So 3 years in living in the monastery, and then for the last 3 years just really traveling around doing workshops for firms, for organizations, and for charities, and for centers. So I'm really hoping and I'm looking forward to connecting with every single one of you. The theme of today is to look beyond fear. To look beyond fear. And the reason I probably thought of wanting to touch on this topic is because if we look today, if we see today, there is so many fears that are constantly surging around in our society, in our community. Can you resonate with that? There are fears of what's going to happen in my future, what's going to happen for the future of the world, what's going to happen for the future of the country, what's going to happen for the future of my career, what's going to happen in the future of relationship. There's so many variety of fears. And often what do? We want to divert our attention from those fears. We want to delay it, or we want to distract ourselves. So there's many things that we try and often do to be able to relieve fear. But today's topic is not going to be so much about doing any of those three. It's not really going to be a question of how do we overcome fear, but rather how do we navigate through fear. Because fear will constantly be a theme in our life. It will be. And so what it is that we have to be able to utilize this energy. We have to learn how to be able to utilize this emotion, this feeling that we're experiencing, in order to really be able to connect with who we are, to be able to understand what it is that we're really and genuinely seeking for, and to be able to understand how we can attain that. How does that sound? So in order to kind of get you a little bit awake, I've got a little exercise here. So you can see there's a word here, and I'm not going to tell you what that word can mean, because that will be something that you will do. Can you take a guess? So I've kind of given the last three. What would you put? How many words can you make from that? You can just shout it out. Cage? Okay. Anyone? Wage. Amazing. Cage, wage. Anyone else? Rage. Wow. Sage. Anyone? Page. Okay, beautiful. Anything more? Mage. Mage? That's interesting. We can add that into the dictionary. Does it mean something? Mage? Okay, what does it mean?
It's like a wizard.
Oh, a mage. Oh, that's so fascinating. Thank you. See, I'm learning something new. Wow. So maybe some of you have said rage. Maybe some of you have said cage. These are just things I also came up with, or I've guessed. Cage, page, and then there's sage. So there's different words that it can stand for. Let's try this one. Love. Dove. Move. Anyone else? I'm just trying to get the energy going here right now. Anyone else? Cove. Okay. So there's move, there's stove, there's dove, there's love. So why am I getting you to do this exercise? What is the point of it? The point of it is, and I want you to remember this, is that the reason why I'm getting you to do this is that we all saw a similar word, and each one of us had guessed what it could actually mean. And so the idea is that in this world that we're situated in, we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. You know, 2 individuals, 3 individuals, 4 individuals may be seeing the same thing, but fear may cause them to respond, to react in different ways. According to, in Sanskrit, what we describe as what is called conditioning, ahankar. So therefore, the Bhagavad Gita says something very beautiful, and I'll share a little bit what the Bhagavad Gita is. The Bhagavad Gita shares that happiness and distress are like the season of winter and summer. They come and they disappear. So therefore, when we're feeling fear, we wanna experience happiness. But when we're experiencing happiness, we fear that that happiness may be temporary. So therefore, rather than actually getting absorbed into the emotion, what we can actually do is explore why we feel what we feel. Because ultimately what it is that by understanding the root, the Bhagavad Gita says, is that then we can become steady sage of the mind. So therefore there's a reason why we're feeling what we're feeling, and rather than getting sucked and absorbed into the reality and the reaction of the reality, we can understand it's almost like we have a GPS, being able to explore deep within ourselves to understand why we're feeling what we're feeling. Why are we experiencing what we experience? And what is this reality? And what is my reaction to this reality? So this is very beautiful. It gives us hope. It gives us some level of encouragement to understand that the fear that I'm feeling is real, is there, but where is it rooted at? And what is it that I'm trying to resolve? So fear is natural. You know, if you search up the word fear in the dictionary or in Google, it's a natural feeling that we all experience, because fear means the main function of fear and anxiety is to act as a signal of danger, threat, or motivational conflict, and to trigger appropriate adaptive responses. So therefore, when we feel fear, is because there is something that we're trying to get away from. But now the problem with that in this day and age is that not only do we fear real problems, real danger, but also the dangers of the mind. You know, it is said that in today's day and age, the most dangerous form of weapon is the media. Is what we're constantly absorbing our consciousness with. What we're hearing, what we're reading, what we're seeing, the environment, the influences. It creates a certain type of psyche where nowadays we even fear to connect with one another. It is said that the biggest issue today is 2 people can be so close and yet so disconnected and so far. And part of that is because so much of what we absorb is what is fed to us. And so our fear is on a haywire. We're fearing so many things that we don't often question why we're fearing what we're fearing. So therefore, the Bhagavad Gita mentions this beautiful thing. It mentions that when we attach, when we become obsessed, when we become attached to a particular object that we fear, from that, what happens is, it says here, from that, from that, lust develops, and from lust, anger develops. So this idea that when we hold on to the fear that we have, what can happen is that our ability to be able to make a distinction between what is genuinely real and what it is that I'm seeing based on my conditioning gets mixed mashed. So it's really interesting. Fear is very interesting. It's there, it's real. And so what do? Here's 3 things that we do. When we're experiencing fear, the 3 things that we may often do is, firstly, we may look for some form of physical relief. The Bhagavad Gita says, what is nectar in the beginning can be poisonous in the end. And what is poisonous in the beginning can be nectar in the end. Often when we experience fear, the natural response may be that we want to look for some alternative temporary solution to be able to relieve ourselves from that fear. When we feel fear, we may want to go to our favorite cake. When we feel fear, we may want to binge on movies. We may want to do things that will distract and take our attention away. We may want to go on vacation. But does this really resolve why we're feeling what we're feeling? No. Maybe in the temporary, it may give us a little bit sense of satisfaction, but remember, happiness can cause distress. The short temporary relief of happiness can cause distress. And so therefore, physically, we may find ways that we want to navigate around fear, but it may give us some happiness, but that is on a short temporary period. In other ways, we may mentally look for a way, like I said earlier on, we may mentally look for a way that we want to overcome fear. And what is that way? We want to divert, distract, and delay our attention from that fear. And lastly is intellectual. We may look for ways to try and intellectualize our fear. Or why I'm experiencing this is because of this and this and this. But the thing is, with all these three ways that we try and overcome fear, it doesn't really resolve the issue. The issue still remains there. And sometimes if we delay it, the issue may even become bigger than what it is. So rather than actually trying to kind of work around fear in these three ways, what we can actually do is navigate through fear. It's almost like, when you take the taxi or you take the Uber, you go inside your car and you want to get to a particular destination, you have to kind of really understand where you are, and then you can find a way to get to the easiest route, to avoid any traffic jam, to avoid any kind of obstacles. And so similarly, our fear is like that. If we can become more situated, if we can become more still and understand this fear, then we can actually look for amazing, beautiful ways to be able to work through that. And I'll tell you one thing. There's a reason. This is a beautiful quote. Our issues are in our tissues. So there is actually a reason why the issue is in the tissue. Even if we change our relationship, nowadays in the society that we live in, there's this idea that if I'm feeling fear, I have to immediately change something. I have to change my relationship. I have to change my career. I have to change the place I'm living. I have to change this. And the narrative of our mind is that we will look for billions of ways to justify why we need a change. But often it's not the internal change. They say that global revolution begins with personal resolution. It's not always about that external fix. Sometimes it's also about the internal adjustments that we need to create, the internal acceptance that we need to make. And so then therefore, through that, then we're able to create a beautiful life. So therefore, by just making external changes to mitigate our fear, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to get rid of the fear. It's just going to project, it's just going to turn up in different ways that often we haven't even been expecting. And so therefore, yes, there are certain things that we fear because of conditioning, the upbringing, the culture that we've grown up in, the people that we've been surrounded in. And then what happens is that due to that fear, it gets reinforced more and more and more by the interactions that we regularly find ourselves in. It gets reinforced, it gets reaffirmed. And so therefore, the Vedic scripture offers something very beautiful. It offers this idea that we need to absorb our consciousness in scriptures, in mentors, in teachers that can actually cut the cycle, the vicious cycle of fear that we experience. That cycle of fear that is in relation to the senses. The Bhagavad Gita speaks about how often a lot of those fears it comes from this attachment that we may have with the senses, but then higher than the senses there's a mind, higher than the mind there's intelligence, and higher than the intelligence is the soul. And that's one thing that I really want to touch on. But this is what we need. They say that if you continue doing the same thing again and again and again, you continue getting the same results again and again and again. So the cycle has to be broken. And how do we break that cycle? By the quality of our conversation. There's a saying that Lao Tzu once said, be careful of what you hear, because what you hear influences what you say or what you think. What you think influences what you say. What you say influences what you do influences your habit influences your character, and your character influences your destiny. So therefore, by being surrounded and in an environment of teachers, scriptures, and mentors that can break that cycle and allow us to connect with the deepest part of who we are, then we can break that fear. And then what we can do is that then we can really understand who we are. So I like to say that actually there's different types of fear that we have. There's different types of fear that we have. And these different types of fear that we have is that often enjoyment fears disease. We all want to be happy in this world, but at the same time, when we experience happiness, we're afraid that that happiness will go away. How many of you have experienced that? So therefore, there's not really this idea of that I can really genuinely be happy. You've got a lot of money, but you're afraid of losing money. You found the ideal job, but you're afraid of losing your job. You know, you found the perfect vacation. Like, for example, I've been here in New York for nearly a month now, but that fear is there, that scarce is there, like, oh, I have to go back to the UK now. So we all experience fear. There's no such situation and circumstance where we can create and we can be permanently happy and enjoyable. And even if that's not the case, attachment. When there are certain attachment that we have, we're afraid of losing that. We love our family, we love our friends, but we don't love the idea that someday they may leave us. You know, we love what we do, but we're afraid that someday we may not be able to do that. Even if that's not there, greed fears loss of wealth. We may have, we may have money, but we're afraid of losing money. So do you see that there's always a fear? And even the other one is beauty. Some of us, we may have beauty. We may feel young, beautiful, energetic, but we're afraid that one day we're going to lose that. And every single one of us, we fear leaving this world. So do you see the one universal thing that we all share is that there is something that we fear. And the happiness that we feel that we can experience is short-lived because the fear always clouds that happiness. But it's not all gloom and doom. I'm not here. It kind of sounds like it, but I just want you to remember that in every visible emotions that we experience has an invisible meaning. There is a deeper meaning, there's a deeper reason. And so then therefore that fear, if we dive deep into it, if we explore it and we try and understand where it's coming from, is this concept, this idea that we're looking for some eternality, we're looking for knowledge, and we're looking for bliss. In Sanskrit, we describe it as Sat, Chit, Ananda. Ananda meaning bliss, Chit means knowledge, and Sat means eternal. If you actually look at the world we live in today, you know, there's so much scientific research because we want to live longer. There's so many educations in schools because we always want to learn more. And there's like so many pubs and so many clubs and so many places because we always want to experience, that bliss, that Ananda. So our entire world is constructed in a way that we're always trying to fulfill these three things externally. Rather than understanding that that vacuum that we're experiencing is because we don't know what our sense of identity is and how can we connect this in the deepest way possible. Remember, the temporary things that we want to externally enjoy, they're short-lived. Everything that we're chasing for in life is because we want to experience the emotion. It's not the thing itself that we're trying to pursue, but the emotions. And that is the beauty of, this Vedic wisdom that we're sharing. That the thing is that what it tells us is that there are things that are beyond our control, then there is things that are within our control. I'm sure many of you have come across this diagram. It is by Stephen Covey, and it's called the circle of influence. That there are the circles of concerns, things that we just can't control, things that are beyond our ability to be able to manipulate, and there's things within our control. And often the problem is we focus so much on the things that we can't control, and that is where stress comes from. Stress is the gap between the reality and the ideal. Is the gap between where we are, what we can do about that, but often where we want to be, and the fact that we can't under immediate change that because we have to be able to learn to change ourselves first. And so therefore the Bhagavad Gita mentions that being freed from attachment, fear and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past become purified by knowledge of me and they all attain transcendental love for me. So it's this idea that we need the knowledge, we need the wisdom. And just to kind of conclude, before we kind of open up for questions, to kind of conclude, the reason I'm sharing all this with you is because fear is not something to be feared. Fear is not something that is foreign. It's something that we're genuinely experiencing because there is something, a deeper purpose in life, a deeper a search that we're on, a deeper pursuit that we're on. And so therefore, one thing that can really help us is when we take the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is a conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. It literally means the song of God. And if we actually look at it, the Bhagavad Gita gives us 5 different important topics. And if we can understand these 5 topics, then we can understand what fear is. And the first thing to understand within the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita is, who are you? In London, we have this very practical and very fun exercise that we do with the public. You know, we ask them, point at yourself. And sometimes they may point at their head. Sometimes they may, just give you like, yes, I'm a doctor, I'm a nurse, I'm a teacher, I'm this, I'm that. Who are you? And they may give so many different responses. But those are layers and layers and layers of identity that can be changed at any time. We can change our career. We can change even as we grow older. We become from a son to a husband. We become from a husband to a father. So there's so many change constantly is happening in our life. But if we understand the essence, and the essence of who we are is that we're a spiritual being having a physical experience of this reality. Now, if we can understand that we're a spiritual being having a physical experience of reality, then we understand that there is this whole different dynamic to the world. That it's not just physical interactions, but there are other energy in play. And in Sanskrit, what we call these energy is called gunas. It's this idea that we're influenced by goodness, passion, and ignorance. How many of you have experienced a situation where you know that there is something that you shouldn't eat because you know it's not good for you, but you eat it anyway? Yes. So we understand that the energy is constantly around us and it's influencing our ability to be able to make the right decision. And often the right decision we may think is the wrong decision, and the thing that we think is the wrong decision may be the right decision. So therefore it's so important to understand what are the energies in my life that is influencing me and the way I live and the way I navigate and my relationships and my spiritual life. That's what you call nature. And then after nature is activities. In Sanskrit, it can have many meanings, but in this context, karma means activity. We perform different activities in this world. But if we can understand who we are and we can understand the energy that influences us, then we can understand what are the different right actions and decisions that we can make in our life. So I want you to understand something. I want you to understand that the nature of the soul, the nature of the mind is that it's constantly active. We cannot disengage with the mind. We cannot disengage with activities. It's always part of who we are. We have to perform. But the question is that how can I engage this energy? How can I engage this propensity to act in the right way? So then therefore it produces the right result and it gives us the right wisdom. Unfortunately, nowadays we're drowning in so much information and we're seeking for wisdom. But that comes from our ability to be able to understand who we are, the nature that influences us, and how we can do the right thing. And the last two, before I open up for questions, is in Sanskrit what we call kala, or time. This is one thing that we're all afraid of. There's this funny thing that when we're young, we have time, we have energy, but we have no money. When we're like adults, we have money, we have energy, but we have no time. And when we're old, we have time, we have money, but we have no energy. So time is something that we're constantly afraid of because time changes so many things. Time brings us closer to the inevitable. But the thing is, time is actually our friend. It's not something that we need to fear. Because what time does is time strips away everything that we are not, and it helps us to come face to face with everything that we are. It's beautiful. At some point we lose our beauty. We lose our wealth. We may lose loved ones. We may lose so many things, but in the end, time connects us with who we are. And if we actually look at life, that's what we're constantly in pursuit of. That's what we're searching for. Who am I? Am I the person that my family defines me to be? Am I what wealth defines me to be? Am I beauty what defines me to be? Am I success what defines me to be? All these things, but time reveals to us that no, you're none of this. These are just factors of things that you will live with during the course of your life, but you're a spiritual being. Interacting with the material energy of things around you. And lastly, if we can understand these 4 things, then we can understand that actually what as George Harrison says, all that you need is love. On this journey of life, every single one of us, whether it's through money, whether it's through success, whether it's through family, whether it's through friends, whatever pursuit, we're all looking for a relationship. We're all looking, that need to love and be loved. We want to be able to pour out an outpour of our love, but we want to experience that same level or maybe even more reciprocation. And most of us, we spend our whole life just to come to the end of our life and realize that we've never lived, because we've been in the pursuit of so many things that in that pursuit, we've never genuinely been able to experience this deep love that we've been yearning and seeking for. So therefore, this is the beauty. This is the beauty when we come together, when we discuss together, then we churn all these wisdom, and then we can understand that what I've always been looking for is within me. It's not some sort of an external thing that I can chase, I can attain. I may spend my whole life. Jim Carrey once said that I wish everyone was successful. I wish everyone had everything that they've always wanted, because they'll realize that's not what's going to bring them genuine happiness. So, yeah, this is very important discussion. And this is a very important type of community where we come together and we can discuss this together. So then therefore, in that process, we can understand who we really are. With that being said, I feel this is good. I've finished 3 minutes before the time. So if anyone has any questions, let me see if there's anything more on the slide. Oh, yes, actually, one last thing. Maybe that will kind of fulfill the last 3 minutes, and I'll open for questions. It's amazing, because what it is that when fear is in control of our life, then we become proud of our success. We become like we want to hold on. We want to, we hoard. But if we understand that there's something higher than us, a divinity, then what happens is we become grateful and humble. When fear is in control and we fail, we become depressed. Why is this happening to me? But a better question than why is this happening to me is what can I do about this? And we understand that then we become accepting and we become determined. If fear is in control of our life, then what it is that in times of difficulties, we become angry. We become frustrated. We become overwhelmed. But when divinity, something higher, is in control, then we understand that difficulties are an opportunity for me to become more progressive. And I'll leave you with one beautiful story, and then I'll open up for question. This beautiful story is a story that I came across from my mentor. Really beautiful. I don't know how it kind of relates to this topic, but maybe it can inspire us in some way. That, it's like, I'll just share it. It's really interesting. This story is about a story of how once, I don't know. I think let's open up for questions and answers. I thought it was like relevant, but it's not so relevant. Let's open up for questions more so.
Well, I was first thinking through the talk. My question is, what's the story?
Oh. It's the story of forgiveness. Maybe it will inspire us. Because I was given a talk on forgiveness 2 days ago. But this story is about how there were this whole family that were sent to the concentration camp. And then what had happened was when they were sent to the concentration camp, they were gonna be gassed. And they were gonna die soon. And then what this lady did is that this lady found a little note. And in this little note, she wrote something. And then she tied it to her hand. And then everyone passed away. And then these soldiers came. And when these soldiers came, they were looking through this, they were just looking around and they were seeing all these dead bodies. And then this particular lady they saw that there was a note on her wrist. And when the soldier opened the note, in the note it is said, "Dear God, Our life is about to come to an end. We're about to be gassed. But we just have one prayer. And this prayer is that when you're about to judge these soldiers, don't just judge them for the external or what they're doing, but also judge them for the invisible, the things that they've actually, the beauty that has actually come out from this whole event. And what is that beauty? This beauty is that as a result of us all coming together in the same concentration camp, our relationship has deepened. Our connection has deepened. Our love for life has deepened. Everything has deepened. So please, if you're going to judge these people, don't just judge them because, we're going to die, but also judge them for the beauty that they've brought us in our life. Now, that is a deep level of forgiveness. And so therefore, what it is that we always have a choice. That was really the main point of that particular story. Love comes from empowerment. Fear comes from something different also. But yeah, it's a beautiful story. So now if anyone has any question, thank you so much. Thank you for encouraging me to share that story. It didn't have that much relevance, but it was nice.
Well, I feel like there is a really nice connecting point because when one is on the face of death, there actually would be a lot of fear. And it seems like this person used that energy to, as you mentioned, deepen their relationship with the divine. So my real question is, how can we practically practice that using that energy of fear in a productive way like this?
It's a very quick question. I think one way that we can use that, and this is something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, when you go up to someone and you ask them, what is your dream? What is it that you want to do? The first thing that they often begin with is the things that they want to avoid. So there's this idea that what it is that so much of our desires are motivated by fear rather than passion, rather than love. So one thing that we can do is that really get into a space where we get excited and enthusiastic about the particular pursuit of what we're trying to achieve, rather than that fear and worry always being there, that doubt, what if this doesn't happen? What if that doesn't happen? And I think from just spending time with Manohara, I think one thing that really helps is a community of inspired individuals. A community of people where the vision and the purpose is greater than any fear. The vision and the purpose is greater than what can go wrong. And I think so much because we're living in a society where we're indoctrinated so much with what if things can go wrong. So just to be in an environment, a space where there's this deep connection, there's this deep relationship, and there's this thing that, we really become each other's anchor. That's what we need, anchor. To be able to progressively move forward is so important. And that's why in Sanskrit, they call it Sangha, where Sangha meaning that when individuals that are like-minded, that want to get away from the trap of fear, when like-minded people come together, talk together, then they condition each other. So practically speaking, it really means that we have to find people in your life that inspire you. Find people in your life that motivate you, encourage you, and empower you. My mentor always gave me this beautiful advice because I always used to be a shy boy. I used to be very nervous, very shy. I used to be that negative person in the room. When everyone came up with solutions, I would be like, but what if? And so my mentor always said, be around people that can see you for who you could become, and you'll become a better version of yourself. But be in a room with people that just see you for who you are, and you'll always remain the same. So each one of us has a potential, but often our potential is not flamed because of our circle. So we have to change our circle, and by changing our circle, then our mindset, our consciousness changes beautifully. And I think that's what you're doing here. By coming here, by being in this environment, what you're literally doing is you're changing your psyche. You're changing, you're disrupting your way of used to think, and you're creating a new thought pattern. That's why they say the most dangerous thing in the world is to think. If you think, then that's the first step to change. So yeah.
So kind of a question around that. So I think throughout your talk, you gave themes of changing yourself first, but then there's also changing the environment. What comes first, the chicken or the egg there, in terms of, should you be starting with yourself first? or should you change your environment? I remember there was one quote you had there where you said, what you hear motivates, how you think, right? So the conclusion of that seems to be, all right, affect the environment around. But then when you talk about the change you want to be in the world, you talk about internally starting it.
So change is very difficult in the beginning. And so therefore, I think the most important thing in one of the words that we have is something called shraddha, or faith. So therefore, one of the most important things is that we have to make a declaration. We have to, within ourselves, make this vow, this declaration that I want to change. Like when I was going through my own negative experiences of life, I first chose that I want to work on myself. But with that, when you make that commitment that you want to change, then it's also about asking yourself, what practical things can there be that I can do to change? I think what it is that if you're one person and you're in a room full of negative people, no matter how much you want to change, it's going to be very difficult. So yes, global revolution begins with personal resolution, but when you've made that personal resolution that you want to change, then another question that you can ask yourself is that what kind of community can I find that matches with that desire, that purpose, that motivation that I want to change and be a better person. Because if you want to be a better person, but you're in a room full of negative people, then over time what it is that the narrative, there's this beautiful saying that we are living in a perception of an illusion. So much of who we think we are is defined by the community and the people that we surround ourselves with. So if we want to change, yes, we have to start off with ourselves in the sense that we have to make a personal commitment that we want to change. But then with that personal commitment, there has to come a practicality. The practicality that I will choose to be in the right community. So yes, I would say there's a fragment that begins with you, but then so much is also determined by the community that you're in. That's why I think there's one African tribe, I forgot the name, and so what they do is that whenever anyone makes any mistake or does anything wrong, he's put at the center or she's put at the center, and everyone circles around that particular person, and then they just kind of shout out all the positive thing about that person. Because what it is that if you do something wrong and everyone's just reminding you of all the beautiful things that you've done, it motivates you, it inspires you, it empowers you. But nowadays we live in a community where you can do many things that are right. The one thing that you do wrong, everyone reminds you of that one thing. And so then therefore what it is that we naturally live in a world today where people are broken down rather than built up. So I would say that you have to have faith in yourself that you can create that beautiful reality, that beautiful experience, but then with that comes the practicality of it, that I need to find the right community.
Would it be right to say that conviction from inside comes first and then external and internal, whatever it takes to get to your...
In Sanskrit, we say that there's a word called sankalpa. It means literally that determination. It has to begin with you. You have to have the determination. My mentor once said that to the degree that you are transparent, that is to the degree that you can be helped. So it literally has to come from you. That you have to have that determination, that worthiness, that I can do this, I will do this, I must do this. If you don't have that conviction, then even if you have all the help, the support, the scriptures, everything, you will find, literally narratives to prove it wrong. To be like, I don't deserve this. I'm unworthy of this. I can't do this. So therefore, the most important story is not the stories that others are telling us, but it's the story that we tell ourselves. And if the story that we tell ourselves is empowering, then the stories that others tell us just reaffirms that story.
Yes, but my question is, my fears come from my previous failure. Like, I'm not trust my judgment anymore. That's really terrible. I mean, I feel like I cannot forgive myself because I make that big mistake. Then I cannot trust myself. So I don't know what.
No, it's a good question. We live in a society, in a world today where, I've also experienced that, where what it is that, we hold on to this baggage. We hold on to this, it's like, if you hold on to a cup, with the water inside, you may not experience any struggle with it, but the longer you hold it, the longer eventually your arm gets tired, your hand gets tired, and you don't know what to do with it. So we've all made mistakes. We've all, went through certain challenges and difficulties. And I think one of the most important thing that we can often do is that, first of all, we must learn, and this is like a journey that I'm on, because, you know, in the Bhagavad Gita, we're constantly reminded that we're just this energy of love. We're this energy of bliss. And you experience that when you're dancing, you experience that when you're meditating. But often what we do is that we hold on to the pain, we hold on to the struggle, and we get self-critical. We become our biggest enemy. We become our worst enemy. And so when we become our worst enemy, you know, the Bhagavad Gita says that to control the mind is as difficult as to control the wind. The mind is constantly giving us narratives of why we're not good enough, why we're hated, why we're angry, why we're this, why we're that. And so mental health is a real issue in today's world. Everyone experiences it to some degree or another. And that's why I'm saying that one thing that personally helped me on my journey, if I look back on it, is, you know, proximity helps us to connect with divinity. It's just so important that we're in a community of people that do not judge us. We're in a community of people that don't you know, bring us down, that hurt us, that make us feel like we're not good enough. The first time I found myself in a community like this, I thought to myself, this is too good to be true, especially in the world I'm living in. But over time, what happens is that the more we become receptive, the more we open our heart to such a loving community, then that triggers this process of healing. So I don't think pain is not something that can, you know, there's a saying that you can't change your whole life overnight, but you can change the direction of your life overnight. Pain is not something that we can immediately heal from. This self-critical mindset is not something that we can just get rid of. But what it is that we can recreate the story of our life. We can recreate a new narrative. And part of that is being in a community, in an environment of people that shower us with love and compassion. And those are very foreign words in today's society. Because in today's society, you almost have to be vulnerable, you have to be insecure, because insecurity is the way that profit can be made out of you. It is. Insecurity is what's necessary for you to buy the things that you don't need, to please people that you don't care about, just to fit in to society. So it's amazing. I feel like community is an important aspect.
So do you think I can understand that in this way, like if I can trust myself, if the purpose is come from the love, come from something really beautiful, so I can trust myself?
Yes, I think, yes, you can. I think what it is that we're born with this ability. Like there's this saying that we're designed to win, but we're programmed to lose. So therefore, it's actually within us. This propensity to love, to trust ourselves, to trust others, to serve, to give, it's all within us. But at some point in our life, we're conditioned otherwise. So by just being able, it is within you. But what it is that you have to just unmask everything that's telling you otherwise. And that's where wisdom comes in. That's where this type of discussion comes in. Wisdom teaches you everything that you are not, so then therefore you can also understand everything that you are.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I remember, I think it was your class at the Darshan.
Mm-hmm.
You said that advertising, they never advertise like buy beans because it's like a bread. Because the things that people actually need, you're going to buy. So advertisement means it's likely you have no need for it.
Yes.
And they have to convince you to
Yeah,
get it.
exactly.
It's out of fear. They have some kind of give you something. And then I also remember in London where you're saying, like, it was about 10 years ago, I remember these interviews where they would go up to people and say, who are you? And the answer, and they say, and follow-up question, who are you? And they're like,
Yeah, it's true. It's definitely true, you know. It's like, it's a profit society, it's a profit-making society. The less you know about yourself, then the more profit that can be made. So therefore, it's so important. That's why I really like, these type of community is so important. This type of environment is so important. Because in these kind of environment, we really learn to love ourselves. And we really learn the purpose, and we get to connect with divinity. So, yeah.
I just had to follow up what she said. we all go through this so much pain sometimes and become, kind of down in grief and guilt and blame ourselves. But they always say you have to forgive yourself, self-forgiveness. How exactly do you practice it?
Self-forgiveness. How do we practice self-forgiveness? I'm learning to forgive myself. I'm on that journey also. It's like one thing that I've been really reflecting on, maybe this may not be in scriptures, but something that I've been meditating on personally is that how Krishna, divinity, loves me so much. Loves me so much with all the mistakes that I make. It's like when we're unable to forgive ourselves, it's because we're constantly beating ourselves up about all the mistakes, all the shortcomings, all the things that we're lacking. And so it helps maybe to remind ourselves that there is someone there that loves us more than we may love ourselves. And then we live off grace. We live off that kind of compassion that, and it's like nobody's taught to hate, or nobody's born to hate. So I think I don't have the answer, but this is something that's been helping me just to understand that there is someone that loves me, and that someone is so compassionate, so forgiving. And so if that someone can forgive me, maybe I can also, along the journey of life, learn to slowly forgive myself. But maybe someone else has an answer.
Oh, well, this is relating to these. I was at a kirtan yesterday with Pramanjali, if anyone knows her.
Yes.
And somebody asked her, like, do we have to pronounce the mantras correctly? Do they still work if I'm learning and I pronounce them wrong? And she gave this great explanation of just how if a kid says a word wrong, like my sister says pretzels instead of pretzels, like nobody was like bad, like say it correctly. It's very endearing to have people make mistakes as they're learning. And like just as a parent finds that endearing of their child, so too does Krishna when we're trying to learn how to pray, learn how to live.
Forgive me.
So, like, in my life, that's how I think of it too, of like, all my mistakes are just very endearing attempts to get closer to God, and the bigger they are, like, the more endearing and the more I learn from it.
Yeah.
And
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And there's this idea that, it's natural, but it can also seem and feel difficult being on this journey of purity. Because what it is that we have to come face to face with so many of our internal demons and struggles that nowadays we're just told to just put it aside and focus on the big wins. So I think, like you said, it's genuinely true. When a child or when a parent sees that their children is trying to be a better person, it's just very endearing and it's very nice. And so therefore, I just lean on that a lot. I just lean on the fact that there's someone out there that sees I'm trying hard, that I'm trying to be a better person, and along the journey I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, a lot of mistakes, but I'm trying. And so that in itself is a motivation, it's an inspiration, it keeps me going.
A little bit of a devil's advocate thing to this. So my parents raised me, right? I was thinking about this love and compassion, the environment that you're in. Right? So I think I was, as the older kid, I was like exposed to like a lot of, the reality, people can be mean, whatnot. But then when my parents had my younger brother, they tried to be softer towards him. But then when I tried to, teach him about things, I would like come up with a little bit of the negativity, and I'd have this fight with my parents about this is what real life is going to be doing for him. So I'm trying to at least prepare him for that. So like, well, one part of it is obviously coming up with that community. The other part, which I think New York City taught me of all places, to get a little bit of a thick skin or understand whenever people say negative things, they don't usually necessarily mean it. It usually comes from them. You just take the positives from whatever people say to you. Like, which way is more valid? Is one way more wrong than the other, or like, is there intent?
To take the positive.
To take the positive, like also just learn how to distill negativity from others into positive. Like that's a thing you can do. Like one thing you can do is go into a community that maybe supports you almost unconditionally, right? Or do I have the wrong interpretation of that? Like being in a community that appreciates you unconditionally.
I don't know if I'm answering your question, but a beautiful answer just came to my mind. You know, I have a friend in London. His name is called Antaranga. And so what we do is that we are on the street and we try and share spiritual wisdom. And sometimes we get people that are like really harsh. They're just super harsh. But my friend just has this ability not to react. And so because he doesn't react, those harsh people come and they say sorry. Sometimes they apologize. They're like, oh, I didn't really mean to behave and act in the way I was. And I'm like, that's amazing, like you can do that. And what he said to me is because often what it is that we just don't understand the story behind people's lives. I think what it is that being in a community like this has two elements of it. That two element is we take, and then the other element is we give. If somehow or another, being in this type of community, we can build like this love barrier around us, then we can go out there and then we can try and share and empower and inspire people. And when they behave in a way that we weren't expecting or in a harsh way, then we can understand that this is just an individual that's suffering. And Martin Luther King said something so beautiful that you can't fight hate with hate, you can fight hate with love. So therefore, I think what it is that it's just so important that, you know, it's not just about me, that I just want to be in a positive community, but with that positive community means a service to humanity. I don't know if that answered, but that just kind of came to my mind. That we all have a sense of that duty and responsibility. Okay, so I think that's about it. We're going to have some really nice spiritual meal or prasadam, they call it.